So recently I was triggered, but it's my opportunity right now to make sure that I know why I'm being triggered, take full responsibility for that activation, and then doing healthy things to manage and deal with that activation. See, I'm a recovering alcoholic, but more than that, I'm just a person trying to learn how to live a conscious life. A life where I'm not being dictated by my emotions, but I'm being dictated by logical, rational, sound, and self-loving thinking patterns. I basically don't want to be an emotional wreck who falls into regressive behaviors that lead me back to my drug of choice, which was alcohol. And I was on the phone with someone who's helping me do a refinance on my house, trying to understand what documents and what specific data that she needed in order to qualify us to get this refinance going. And I got triggered. She was asking me for some things that I didn't readily have available to me about financial histories, past, receipts, tax information, and it reminded me of a thought that I'm a disorganized person, that I'm not a good enough adult, that I'm not someone who keeps good records, that I'm irresponsible. Triggered a lot of emotions of anxiety and some sadness and some annoyance within myself, and instantly put me in a brooding state, a state of insecurity. The consequence of me not being mindful of the things that activate me, taking full responsibility of the things that activate me, is me returning to drinking, which then is returned to a ton of regressive childlike behaviors that will tear apart my life very, very quickly. Every trigger is anchored in the past, is anchored in memory. That's something I've been learning. It lives in our limbic system. It puts us in that fight or flight, and it takes us back to what we have or have not survived. In our brains, they want us to go back to whatever we did to get through whatever experience we had, because it knows that we survived it, regardless of if it includes despair, grief, and old reactions that are no longer serving us. When I get activated, I know I need to breathe. I think it's the most important thing I can do. And the other one is just to be mindful of activation, period. So notice a chemical reaction in the body, that emotion, see what that thought was, challenge it, do some reality testing. And I talked to my wife about it, which is another one. So I worked through it, but that's the sort of thing that could spin me out for weeks if I wasn't careful. So I think it'd be really interesting right now to call my mom, see if she is available, and see what she might have to say about being triggered and how she handles it.
Oh, honey, you don't want to see this gal right now. She looks horrible.
Mom, why would you say that?
I guess that's because that's how I feel.
I was gonna say, you should be careful with that self-talk.
So what are you up to, babe?
So I'm currently recording a YouTube video. I'm recording our conversation right now just as a potential bit of footage, but it's not live. I'm making a video about triggers and what our first reactions are when we are triggered, and what do we do that is most helpful to us individually. And if you wanted to share, you could.
Okay, pain triggers me. A lot of pain triggers me because of my painful history, physical painful history. Most important is the spiritual part of it. Do my prayers and meditation, and I do always feel better. And then I try to do what I've been taught to, embrace the pain and not resist it, because when your body resists something, it gets worse. Learn how to breathe, take a different outlook on that pain, and not let it define me and not let it take over my life, but work with it. But sometimes I get scared when the pain stays at the same level throughout the day. I lose perspective that it's not going to last forever, and that fear of trigger that it's not going to get better and what's going to happen to me. And my first reaction is not to get out of it. Despite that, I get up, move around, even if it hurts, sit down a few times and do the things that I know of my activities of daily living that make me feel better. And I'm always proud of myself because I spent a lot of time under the covers.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you wanted.
I didn't want anything. I just wanted to talk to you and see what you thought.
And the other thing, nature. I have a house full of live plants that do amazing things for me. I finally want to go around and talk to them and thank them for their beauty. Feel better. When I look out my window and watch the squirrels and the birds, and for a moment, I think that's when my soul, I think, looks out there, and that's who I really am. And I don't feel pain at that very moment. I just observe something greater than myself.
Yeah.
Those are the things I do today that I never thought of doing before. I would I have 18 years of sobriety, so I don't regress to where I wish I could check out with pain pills.
Okay.
And just talking to you, this has made me feel better.
Yeah, talking feels good. Thank you for sharing all that. I can tell that you're a little more sensitive right now than you are sometimes. So you're clearly dealing with some pain, and that I imagine has just activated a lot of your sensitivity and feelings. And I'm glad you could express that. I think that's a really good thing. It was nice of you to take the call. And
this is real me. This is life. Everything isn't going to always be the look good. I guess I've thrown down the look good. My dad always says he can tell by my eyes.
Yeah. I apparently have very telling eyes as well. I don't hide things very well, which is good. I think trying to hide things and keeping all that stuff inside my body has been not helpful to me.
It's never served us, Noah.
Yeah.
Keep myself reminded that this isn't going to last forever.
Yeah.
I just have to get through each day and do the things I've been taught to get through it, and it's going to be okay.
Okay, well, thank you, Mom. I love that. I think that'll help a lot of people for sure. What a powerful share that just was from my mom. I want to thank her for being on here, Mom. I know you're going to watch this back. Thank you for taking a moment to share with my audience and to talk with me about how you deal with triggers. What my mom didn't say in this video is that she has a massive history of surgery, tons of physical issues that have required dozens of very, very serious, traumatic, and painful surgeries with lots of rehabs and lots of physical therapy and just a lot of chronic issues that she's had to work through that have been a very, very big part of her story, not just going through it, but overcoming it, learning to deal with it, and then coming out of an opiate addiction into many, many years, almost 2 decades of sobriety. Something I did yesterday pretty well, and that I'm always trying to be mindful of in early sobriety, and just as a man trying to take full responsibility of his life, is that it is my job to manage my triggers. It is my job to look at what is triggering me, deep dive why it's triggering me, to anchor myself physically through breathing or through walking or through communicating, like talking with you guys even right here, I think is a very valid form, or calling my mom or speaking to someone who can help me reality test. But the point is, no one's going to save me. It is no one's job to save me. It is no one's job to rescue or fix me being activated. When I was drinking every single night to absolute obliteration, I had so many trapped emotions, so many things just coursing through me in the form of anxiety, of sadness, of anger that I hadn't released, of fear. There's so much going on that I had the opportunity to purge being in rehab and being in touch with my feelings. I kind of had an emotional awakening, and it's also made me realize that I'm very sensitive. I'm a sensitive guy. Change is very hard for me, and I respond to these with regressive thoughts and feelings about myself that I'm learning have come from my childhood and how I was hardwired to navigate and survive this world. But a lot of those old hardwirings, like running, evading, fleeing, hiding, deflecting, blaming, using drugs or alcohol, or seeking comfort, or seeking things to numb or blunt my feelings, they don't work in adulthood. They've been very, very unuseful to me. So when I get triggered, much like I did yesterday, it's my job to take care of myself. And I think that's the biggest message that my mom kind of brought to you, is that she has to do things differently because she chooses to be her true adult self, her true self-loving, self-representing self every single day. And that's what I want to be as well. So I'm so glad that I got my mom on the horn, so to speak. I'm so glad she was willing to share with you guys. And I'm glad you're here. I hope you got something out of that, because it doesn't take much to activate me, and it doesn't take much for me to fall into a victim-like mentality. And I have to stay out of that. In the comments below, please let me know, what are some things that activate you? What are some things that trigger you? And more importantly, what do you do when you're activated? How do you deal with those stress, or that stress? How do you deal with those activations and that trigger in a healthy, productive, useful way? So we can all learn from each other. It's not just me sharing my experience, but collectively in the comment section, we can just have a wealth of tangible tools that might help us. So you now know some of mine. I look forward to learning about some of yours. But one thing is for sure, I cannot run away from my feelings any longer. It's no longer something that I'm comfortable or okay with. I have to feel my feelings. I have to stay in rational thought, and I have to do the things necessary to experience them, but not let them overrule me and then dictate behavior that is aggressive and dangerous that may lead me back to drinking. That's my number one goal right now, is to make sure that on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis, I'm staying right-sized, I'm taking full responsibility for my life, and I'm choosing to be mindful. It is not always easy. It is quite frustrating. It's quite frustrating sometimes, but it's also incredibly empowering knowing that I'm doing something different. I'm doing something different than what I've been hardwired to do, which is run, evade, and escape, and defer, and rationalize. That's good. That's something that keeps me congruent with my true self. That's something that keeps me in a state of contentment when happiness isn't necessarily available. I can look myself in the mirror and be like, good shit, Noah. Good job. This is what I want. And thank you for doing that. This is literally me talking to myself, positive affirmation, be like, thank you for doing the next right thing. I appreciate it, because hurting my own feelings is getting old. So that's my video. I really appreciate you guys. And let's show my mom some love in the comments section as well. She answered the phone early in the morning. Like she said, she's not all dolled up. She's just in her raw state. She was willing to be vulnerable with us, which I think is pretty powerful. All right, adios.